something you've learned from Dom or Soundsphere that you still use in your writing to this day?
Let me think. I think just passing it on, like passing on knowledge and making time for people, even if you don't necessarily get anything out of it.
Hello, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and you are watching Tom Talks Rubbish. It's the place for interviews, wrestling reviews, and so much more.
You subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. I highly recommend you subscribe here first.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by Jay, a journalist in the music industry. So welcome to the show, Jay.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So if we take this back, every content creator I have interviewed is passionate about the thing that they create content for. So have you always had a passion for music, or was it something that came sort of, I guess, later?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a passion for it. I've always had a passion for writing. When I was younger, I never really thought I'd go into music journalism. It just kind of, the opportunity sort of just to my lap in a sense. So I started off more as a poet. So I was performing and writing a lot of poetry. And Dom, my editor for Soundsphere Magazine, a music publication in the North, he saw my work and he commissioned me to do poems. And from there on, we sort of built that relationship. And he knows I'm into like a lot of punk alternative music. And I knew of some whole history to do with that kind of scene. Just from like speaking to people in the community. And I asked Dom, I pitched the article, and yeah, he just kind of gave me a shot and people enjoyed the article, and it kind of went from there really. Never really set out to be a music journalist, but just kind of happened.
You said that you had a passion for writing and stuff like that, and poetry. So where does that come from?
I feel like writing is just a good outlet to get out how you're feeling. And in the typical like way of most angsty teenagers, we write kind of, terrible poetry about whatever we're going through. And it's a great outlet. And for me, especially, like, I didn't really have anyone in those years that truly understood kind of what I was going through. I felt quite alienated, so writing was a really good output for me to kind of channel all those emotions and thoughts into something creative. Yeah, I just love reading as well, so I think it kind of supplemented each other.
To be a good writer, do you feel like you need to be good, like well versed in reading, or do you think that the two can be separated?
In my opinion, I think you're going to have a lot of difficulty being a good writer without reading. Mm-hmm. So I think reading is essential to becoming a good writer. Even if it's not like literally reading, but listening to like audiobooks. But seeing how it's written on the page, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to replicate that. So when I started off in my career of music journalism, and I was like, how do I even write like a proper review? How do I even, go about writing this article? I just read a lot. I just read a lot of NME, Kerrang, these kind of articles online to sort of help me picture what my own article was going to look like.
Yeah, I get you. So you talked there about, was Soundsphere your first big break in the music journalism industry?
Yeah, I mean, I never really did much with music journalism before that, so I really owe Dom a lot for that. And I wouldn't say I'm not like the most established music journalist or anything. I don't have like Vice or NME like under my belt. It's mainly just Soundsphere and then a few online publications here and there. So I did some writing for Getting Her Ears, and that was again on the volunteer basis. And currently well, it's not really work. It's more like volunteer stuff.
I know what you mean though.
Still takes hard work though, but just don't get paid for it. But yeah, so I do stuff for the Mancunian, which is the student-run paper for the University of Manchester, where I'm studying. And yeah, I've had some great opportunities interviewing people for that. So recently interviewed Mickey from the Undertones, so the band behind Teenage Kicks, which is kind of amazing, very iconic. And yeah, that was just through the Mancunian. So even though I'm not getting paid for it, it's still like really amazing experience to have that.
Do you think that to basically be a good journalist, you also have to read like other people's work to know like not how to write something, but like to not repeat yourself almost?
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, the whole point, like reviews, you don't want to read the same thing being said. Like a review essentially is an opinion. Like there's no point copying exact templates of other people, because people read reviews because they want to hear someone's personal take, someone's personal response to an album or a song or a live kind of gig. So yeah, I think it's great to read, just get the general sort of structure of how a review might work, or how effective certain kind of forms can be for reviewing. But yeah, it's good as a springboard. I'd say reading is a great springboard for writing.
How do you maintain your passion for music? Because like music is everywhere. And then I suppose when you've thought about it all day, you might be like, just leave me alone. So how do you maintain your passion for music?
I mean, I think that's a very good question. To be honest, right now, I am just kind of swamped with everything. So I haven't been able to like set aside time to just, discover new music and stuff. Like if I hear a track and I like it, I'll, save it. But yeah, I mean, it's a completely valid, good question, because I think a lot of people do sort of, lose that passion or lose that drive, or the rest of the world gets in the way. But I mean, it's still there. Like I still enjoy listening to music. A lot of the times I kind of work around the opportunities I'm given. So in that, I mean, like when I got the Undertones interview, I did so much research around that and watched a bit of documentaries here and there, and just kind of went through like the entire kind of albums, the EPs that they already had out there, and like almost like rediscovering stuff in that sense, even though it's already been out there. So yeah, I think music journalism has offered me opportunities to sort of like deep dive into stuff that I might have already experienced or kind of passed briefly. So for example, the Undertones, like I really got to kind of grapple with like the different songs, the general group dynamic, the history behind it as well. So yeah.
Where do you think you'd be if you hadn't actually, I'll ask you that question in a minute. You talked about pitching the idea to Dom for your article. So how do you go about pitching something like that when you don't have a portfolio to show someone like this is what I've done in the past? And then how does something like a pitch meeting like that work?
I mean, I was quite fortunate because Dom, he is a very relaxed, kind of cool guy. He's just an amazing editor. He will just like, throw you a bone and give you a shot. And to be honest, a lot of editors in the real world aren't like that. People aren't as nice as Dom, unfortunately. So I think Journo Resources, it's like this online website which is amazing for kind of helping young journalists, so I definitely recommend looking into Journo Resources. But Yeah, I think you can find like pitch templates online, but you have to have a good idea of what you want to write. And a lot of the time with pitching, it's a lot of sending stuff that editors are never hearing back. That's very, very common in the journalism industry. So you'll send the same pitch to 5, 10 editors and you don't hear anything. Or if someone's really, because a lot of times if they don't have the energy to respond to every single pitch, because they probably get bombarded with 100 emails a day from different journals trying to kind of land a pitch. So yeah, but again, don't take that to heart. That's another thing. Like, just keep trying. Maybe eventually one of them will land. In the meantime, keep putting your own work out there. So yeah.
Sounds a lot like being a YouTuber who interviews people. Not gonna lie, because I'll send out 20 emails a week and I'll get like 2 replies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you think the opportunity might have gone if, say, you'd gone to a different editor that maybe wasn't as nice as them?
I mean, I probably have to really convince them. Thing is, with journalism, a lot of it is networking as well. So it's a matter of like establishing like relationships, friendships, building up kind of a certain repertoire between like companies and people. So yeah, I have portfolios of work written in like the transactional sort of sense. So
Yeah.
I would have stuff to show. But if you don't have anything and you're going to an editor who's probably not as nice as Dom, you're probably going to have to come a lot more prepared. So having that portfolio work, even if it's like a blog that you write reviews on personally, just something to show for your passion and your words.
Mm-hmm. What is something you've learned from Dom or Soundsphere that you still use in your writing to this day?
Let me think. I think just passing it on, like passing on knowledge and making time for people, even if you don't necessarily get anything out of it. Because I wouldn't be where I was without Dom kind of setting aside that time and, you know, sacrificing his time and part of like Soundsphere's budget and whatnot to like pay me for the work that I was doing. Because a lot of the times you will get publications that don't pay you and they'll ask you to put in all this work, especially with music journalism. That's very, very common that people will advertise these kind of listings for journalists for their online publication, but they don't pay anyone. So Dom isn't like that. He actually, you know, sets his time up, like aside to help younger people into the music industry, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. And that is something that I really try and employ as well when I'm speaking to people in the creative industry. Like, if there's any way I can help someone kind of make their life a little bit easier, I'll try and do it, because I wouldn't be where I was without someone doing that for me. It's just like paying it forward, I guess. Yeah.
It's like with this, I think we tried to schedule it 3 times?
Yeah.
And then and we were both like, we will do this, but at the minute we're both so busy.
Yeah. So, exactly.
With writing an article and stuff like that, how do you sort of take out, not the enjoyment, but like, say you go to review a concert, for example, how do you put your work brain and your writer brain on when it's like, but this is a song I really like and I want to dance, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, usually I have like the notes app on my phone, like through the performance. I just have it out there. Just kind of, it's just there. It's not necessarily like I'm staring at the entire show. Like, if there's a thought that pops into my head, I'll jot it down really quickly. So there's a great thing about phones. You can get messages down very quickly, especially if you're used to using them. Whereas with paper, it's a bit more, you know, writing at a gig, it looks kind of a bit odd as well. Like people
Yeah.
around you, like, what is this person scribbling at? So I think having that that phone, that kind of like virtual notebook, I guess, and being able to write your notes in real time quickly before they forget, because I am a very forgetful person. So I need that. Like I need to, if I have a thought, I've got to write it there and then, otherwise it's just gonna go. It is a hard balance sometimes, because sometimes you just want to go to a show and just relax and just, take it all in. And I would totally do that and write when I'm home if I had the great memory of some of my peers, but unfortunately I do not. So I've just got to kind of write in the moment, or it'll just disappear and I'll forget. So
You talked about, sorry,
no,
continue.
that's it.
You talked about having to go to stuff for work and obviously doing the writing and stuff like that. When you go to a concert now for fun, can you switch off and just act like you were before you got into music journalism? Yeah, I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I definitely can. That's not really an issue. Like I went to a dry cleaning gig, the band Dry Cleaning, really great, definitely recommend, recently, and I could just switch off, because it doesn't take energy to switch off for me. Like I'm quite happy to just kind of go into like quite a dazed state, and that's quite easy and comfortable. But like when I know I've got a job to do, it's kind of like there's a little bit of anxiety there that keeps me on edge. And that's okay, that's part of the job, isn't it? Like you have to come up with something at the end of the day.
So if we go through like your prep, say you were going to a concert tomorrow, for example, to write for Soundsphere or any other publication, what is your prep like on before show day, and then what is your prep for like show day itself?
Okay, so say I'm going to see Beach House soon for the Mancunian, so in their gig in April. So how I'd prep for that is just read around what's been said about the Beach House live gigs so far. What set are they doing, the same set list? What are other people saying? What to kind of expect from it? And just like refresh my memory with songs, and like, because obviously no band is going to announce, well, very occasionally they do, but often they'll just go into the new song and they don't say this title is this. So you've got to kind of just know your shit when you go. Like you've got to know what the songs are titled before you kind of obviously go to the show. And that is actually quite hard for me, because I'm really bad at remembering titles. I can I'll recognize the song, but
I'm the same.
So yeah, that is quite important for me, just to refresh my memory with like title names and just kind of match the title to the rhythms and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, just reading around what's already been said, refresh my memory with the members of the band, so their actual names. So if I cross them, I can actually speak to them directly, as opposed to be like, hello, Beach House member. It's a bit more personal if I actually know the name. Just like small things like that, and then obviously make sure my phone's fully charged. Usually when I am going to see a gig, that artist is all I listen to for like 2 or 3 days beforehand, just to get in like the proper, mindset of it. So yeah, I kind of just saturate my brain with the music of that artist before I head into the gig.
What about after the gig? Because I know that I need time to cool down after a gig.
Yeah. I mean, after the gig, I would have probably made some notes during the gig, some key ideas. I'd probably work on it the next day, to be honest, because I'd be shattered after that gig. And then I just look at my notes, try and again visualize what happened, take some video. If I took some videos, look back through the footage, and could I describe like the stage setting, really make it as if the reader is there in the place with me. So kind of just write. It takes a few drafts. It takes a few days for me to write. I'm not someone who can just whack it out in one night, one sitting. For me personally, especially now I've got lupus, brain fog, it's a bit harder for me to process and write things down. It does take me a lot longer. But yeah, it gets done eventually, but it does take a while of editing and re-editing to get to the finished product.
Mhm. As we wrap this up, because I do want to be respectful of your time, what is our 5 things that any aspiring music journalist, I suppose would be the right phrase. My brain just switched off there. I do apologize. What are 5 like pieces of advice you would give to an aspiring journalist in the music industry?
So firstly is network. Don't be afraid to. A lot of music journalists start off their career by writing for free, and that kind of sucks in a way, but also like that's just the way the industry is at the moment. People often start their music journalist careers by writing for free. And there's loads and loads of publications online magazines where you can write for free. And I'd recommend reaching out to one of them and be like, can I contribute a piece to this? Can I write a review for you guys on this thing that I'm passionate about? And yeah, so build up a portfolio first, like that. And then I'd suggest if you're at university or at school, write for your school or uni paper. I can't stress that enough. If you're at university, go and write for the music section for that paper, because often they get amazing opportunities and guest passes to like gigs and stuff, and it's just amazing. So again, like with the Mancunian, I managed to interview like Yard Act, Mickey from Undertones, Hot Milk, Heather Baron Gracie from Pale Waves, like these big names, but they've come through the student paper. So again, building up sort of a platform like that. Another thing, just go to gigs, speak to people, just get kind of an idea of the scene in your local city. And when you get into the point where you're writing an article, my next thing is just read. Find like a few music journalists who you really enjoy reading, like their articles, save their articles, see like kind of what do you like about these music journalists and their kind of takes on music. Is it the sort of imagery that they use? Is it their sense of humor? Like really sort of think about, well, why do I like their work? What can I put into my work?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so kind of making those sort of connections between people that you're inspired by and what can actually, fuel your own work. And then I think finally, let me think. Listen to the radio more, I think. Listen to radio and watch interviews and see what's already out there. And hear what's already out there. Think about the way people speak to musicians and artists that they interview. Think about, what questions might be inappropriate, what might not, when to sort of take risks and read an artist's sort of demeanor before asking questions. Because like one question to one artist may be completely fine and they're not too fussed, whereas another person might take offense to it. So do your research before you interview someone. Don't be asking them the same question that every music journalist ever asked them. Try and, ask them something different. Ask them questions that offer a bit more depth to them.
Mm-hmm. So the question that I end all my interviews on, actually, before we do that, I want to give you the floor. Like, plug away, because this has been amazing.
I mean, there's not really much to plug. My Instagram and Twitter are @punkcolor, and usually I post about upcoming like poetry gigs on there, or I repost my articles on my Twitter or on my Instagram, like, highlights or whatever. So yeah, I think that's probably the best place to find my work. Feel free to contact me as well through DM. If you've got any questions or just want to learn a bit more about where I got to where I am now. But yeah, not too much to plug.
Fair enough. Just wanted to give you the floor. So as we wrap this up, the question that I end all my interviews on is, with like writing, with like articles and stuff like that, we're all gonna live forever in some sort of ways. So what is one article that you would recommend that people check out if they want to know your body of work? And then what is one that you're like, okay, I've grown a lot since then, or maybe my opinion has changed? Like one that you don't recommend, basically.
I think for one that I recommend, I'm going to base this off. Well, a lot of the responses, I think it's basically more sentimental for me, because I think it was the first article that I pitched to Dom, and it was about the history of the Boathouse, which was like this kind of really cool underground venue in Hull that would showcase a lot of artists. It was like a huge like art scene, and then it suddenly like died out. But yeah, it was like really crazy, and there's a lot of people in the whole music scene, a lot of middle-aged people who have really strong kind of memories of it. And the article is sort of like a deep dive into what the Boathouse was, what the history behind it was, why it was relevant, and what it offered. Because it was just sort of like chaos, a bit of free, like hippie free reign, essentially.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really cool, because nowadays you don't really have that. Like everything's like legislation, it has to adhere to this law, this rule, before it can be allowed to be open to the public. And I completely get that, but also it's just sort of a bit of nostalgia for you know, back in the days where I wasn't even born, where it was just sort of like, you know, a bit kind of carefree in a sense.
Yeah. Then what about one that you're like, don't go back and read that?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe probably in my first couple of interviews that I ever did, with Kofi Smiles from BBC Radio Humberside. I think I was just nervous and too excited, and I was really kind of like self-conscious about the time frame, because I thought we had quite a short window, and Kofi, he kind of like really goes on like a tangent when you ask him a question, which is great. It's really fun to listen to. But like when you're under like, when you're hyper aware of like the time constraints, I was like trying to like, you know, cut in, but it probably just sounded like I was interrupting him a lot. So I think back on that and I was like, very amateur. But again, that was like my first shot, so you just gotta learn to forgive yourself, move on, and learn from it.
To be honest, guys, I think that's a beautiful way to end it. So as we wrap this up, I want to say thank you to Jay for coming on. If you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.